to the dark sun are tainted by the dark elements, and the only way to save them from suffering is to kill them. After all, once transformed, Darksiders cannot return to normal human society, due to their appearance or aggressive nature and lack of human consciousness. No matter how it sounded, it was only possible for Darksiders to return to the dark side, to similarly mutated beings. That was why Li Chengyin reminded his opponent that he had no place to go and no destination once he went to the dark side. Although our hero was a Darksider himself, he was different from the others because he had kept his mind and consciousness. Now he was determined to show the last mercy to the creature that used to be Qin Wen and bury him to end his suffering. Of course the monster was against such an act of mercy and was willing to do anything to suffer a little more in this world. He made his hook rotate, turning it into a kind of blender to smash his opponent into pieces. But Li Chengyin didn't sit idle either and prepared his own trick using fast-growing roots. This time the hook was unable to destroy his hands. Even more so, it couldn't even touch them. The roots stopped him safely. Of course, everything had to be paid for. Now our hero had to use plants that lived in symbiosis with him, and he was sorry for the damage he had caused them. However, the main thing now was to deal with the Darksider, and then he would reward them generously for their help. Now enhancing his ground body with roots, Li Chengyin was able to deprive his opponent of his arm without any problems. The Darksider immediately roared in pain and rage, and stood still for a moment to catch his breath. It seemed that he had given up and was about to start running away, but it only seemed so. Soon the rage and hatred that filled him burst out, and he used his other hand to attack. Suddenly, Lulo could be heard shouting behind him as she climbed to the top of the cliff again despite the danger. She brought with her a backpack with a very useful tool, which she hurriedly threw to our hero, and advised him to use it. Li Chengyin turned around just in time to avoid falling victim to the thing himself, and quickly caught it. It was just what he needed. Large and sharp garden shears. They alone would probably be enough, but our hero thought otherwise. Li Chengyin decided to enhance them with the power of the earth and the flexibility of plants, to combine with the sharpness of metal weapons to create an ultimate weapon. Now he had a power in his hands that the wooden Darksider would definitely not be able to handle no matter how hard he tried, and no matter how much he hated it. Now it was time to put this new weapon to the test. The Darksider wasn't going to give up no matter what and went on the attack. Li Chengyin only smiled contentedly at this. This idiot didn't even realize that he had already lost. With one confident move, he destroyed the Darksider's second arm, and only pieces of wood were scattered in different directions. Our hero didn't stop there and went on the attack himself. Now that his opponent didn't have a single hand, he had no problem giving him a crushing blow to the head. Darksider fell helplessly to the ground, his mask of darkness cracked, and due to his lack of arms, he could no longer get up. Neither would Li Chengyin let him. He towered right above the monster, putting a tip to its throat. The dark side had been defeated. Toot Toot immediately appeared from the ground as soon as the danger had passed. He criticized our boy's weapon, calling it insufficiently durable, though quite tough. But among his incisive remarks was the helpful advice to bury the Darksider in the ground to absorb nutrients from it, according to the standard rule of nature. Of course, the Darksider didn't like that prospect very much, and in desperation shouted another load of nonsense. Before burying him underground, Li Chengyin had one last question for him. Why did he become like this? He just shouted once again that he wanted to save people. This made our hero think that perhaps Qin Wen became a Darksider, not only because of his exposure to the dark sun. It was because of his constant paranoia that drew him to the dark side. The ground and roots under Li Chengyin began to absorb the monster. The earth would take care of him and become a safe place that would ensure that no one else would be killed by a so-called savior of friends like this one. When everyone finally calmed down and came to their senses, only 2 small mounds of earth remained near the cliff, with Liu Fengyuan looking sadly at them. She wasn't crying, but she was barely holding on. They were her best friends and had died in one fell swoop. Now she only had Luluo left. For her sake, she must be strong. Lulo, seeing her depressed state, wanted to comfort her and distract her from her loss by introducing her to Li Chengyin. But there was one small thing about it, which our hero hurriedly reminded her of. His body was difficult to see, but he had a solution to this problem. All that was left was to find out if Liu Fengyuan could hear him. He himself wanted to ask her if she was offended by him. Li Chengyin himself was well aware that he had screwed up. If not for his indecision, Cheng-jun would still be alive, and Qin Wen would have been neutralized faster. If our hero hadn't raised false hopes about Darksiders, he could have handled this situation much better. Surprisingly, Liu Fengyuan replied to him that she didn't think so and didn't blame him for anything. He must be an idiot to come up with something like that. In fact, when she came out of the civilian shelter, she was mentally prepared for such an outcome. Even if the worst thing happened to her, she wouldn't blame anyone else but herself. However, Luluo was not surprised by her words, but by the fact that she could hear Li Chengyin's words. Therefore, she asked how she could do it. She didn't know the answer to this question, but for some reason, after Chungjun's funeral, she clearly began to feel the presence of another person nearby, even though she couldn't see him. Now, thanks to the image made from the ground, there was some sort of speaking object in front of her. It was more like an abandoned clay doll that had been broken many times and covered in mud. That's roughly what our hero looked like from her perspective. Luluo also revealed an interesting fact about Li Chengyin, that he himself is a sentient Darksider who turned into a piece of land. And he has a friend, a friendly plant Darksider called Toot Toot. Their existence was hard to believe, and other survivors would definitely laugh upon hearing something like this. But now the two of them had seen them with their own eyes and simply couldn't doubt it. Liu Fengyuan was still very sad, and even such an unusual company of two intelligent Darksiders couldn't distract her. Luluo offered her to stay with them and live here, but she was in no hurry to agree. She needed to think and rest, and she was going to announce her decision to them tomorrow. Liu Fengyuan was very tired and asked them to let her stay at their house for one night. As expected, Liu Fengyuan was too shocked by the death of her friends, and Luluo was worried about her. She was sure that she should spend time with her this evening to calm her down. Well, our hero didn't mind the additional company. It's more fun together. The evening passed quickly, and the girls, exhausted from a stressful day, quickly fell asleep. However, something was wrong, and Luluo was shivering. She was sick and had a fever. Outside, our hero, free from the need for sleep, was looking up at the sky and pondering the future. Near him was Toot Toot, who was wondering whether the number of human members had increased permanently or only temporarily. Li Chengyin did not know for sure. Since the dark sun had set, communication had been cut off, and the scouting drone had been destroyed. In such a situation, if Liu Fengyuan is as smart as she says, then she won't leave and go on a risky journey alone. Toot Toot had a poor understanding of human behavior, therefore asked if she knows a place safer to live, so why then did she come here? To him, such actions seemed very unreasonable. The answer was simple: to save her friend. It was proof that she was a very good person, and Li Chengyin wanted to shelter only good people in his land. For Toot Toot, such an explanation did not clarify anything, and he despaired to understand their actions, said that the thoughts, words, and actions of animals are very difficult to understand, unlike plants. The morning of the next day was by no means calm and serene. It began with the screams of Liu Fengyuan, who was asking Luluo what had happened to her. Li Chengyin came running to her screams to find out what was going on, but Liu Fengyuan could not explain anything to him. Luluo had a high fever, but its cause was unknown. It could have been anything: an allergy to an insect bite, a parasitic infection, or even sepsis. Luluo herself thought it was because she was too tired and her immune system had deteriorated. On top of that, she had been desperately fighting for her life for the past few days, and her spirit was too tense. She was sure that she just needed to get some sleep, and everything would pass. Liu Fengyuan was not going to let things go. She was very worried about her friend and was willing to do her best to help her get better. Judging from the symptoms, Luluo needed antibiotics, but unfortunately they didn't have any. To get them, they would have to go back to the civilian shelter and get them there. That place was not far away. It would take less than a day to get there and back, and Liu Fengyuan was willing to immediately set off on this dangerous journey. But in the meantime, Luluo needed to be closely watched and taken care of. She assigned these duties to our hero. When she was about to leave their home, Li Chengyin stopped her. He reminded her that she would not be able to get out of this wilderness safely on her own without the help of a scout drone. If he could go with her, he would definitely protect her. But unfortunately, his range of motion is limited to this piece of land, and when he moves outside of it, it will be too slow. Luluo would simply not be able to last that long. The difficulties and dangers along the way didn't stop Liu Fengyuan. She was willing to take the risk and go on her own. She didn't see the point of living in a world without her friends. That's why she was willing to put absolutely everything on the line to save Luluo. Seeing her determination, our hero decided not to stand aside and help. The very next moment, he tore off his eye. Such a sudden act shocked Liu Fengyuan because she had no idea why he did it. But to be honest, Li Chengyin wasn't even sure what he was doing yet. All he wanted to do was to test his hunches. With all his might, he cast his eye into the sky. Since he didn't know much about his new body, he had to check everything on his own. Strangely enough, his theory was confirmed. The piece of earth separated from his body could indeed continue to have a part of his perception, but it could only last for a short time. Just a few seconds later, his eye had turned into a piece of earth that no longer had anything to do with him. But Toot Toot knew how even this limitation could be overcome. He only needed to infuse the piece of earth with dark energy. Toot Toot himself moved like an animal on the same principle and could separate from the ground by expending dark elements. In this case, Our hero wondered how many dark elements it would take to separate a piece of earth from itself for 24 hours and still maintain the same perception during that time. Surely not a small amount. Toot Toot tried to calculate roughly and even, froze in place when he realized how much it would take. But when he looked at the house where Luluo was lying sick, suffering in a fever, Toot Toot dared and asked if one day he would also fall ill. Would they also be willing to spend resources to save him? Lee Cheng-yin assured him that, of course, he would do his best. It would be natural, after all. They are now a symbiotic group together and should take care of each other. Gradually, Toot Toot realized everything and began to accumulate dark elements. His roots had broken free and he was now ready to help his friends. He climbed higher, specifically to gather more energy and transmit it. Liu Fengyuan was shocked at such a quick transformation. Before this little flower seemed quite harmless to her. Toot Toot wasted no time and began to fill our hero's land with dark energy that he himself absorbed from the sun and earth. This amount should have been enough for Lee Cheng-yin to be able to separate a piece of earth from his main body and still retain his perception for a full 24 hours. The sound of energy filling his body was similar to the beeping sound of resource production in some game. Lee Cheng-yin was surprised that Toot Toot knew so much, and wondered what other purposes dark energy could be used for. Was Toot Toot really using it to become smarter? But really he was just learning by watching our hero. And now by example, he realized what the concept of groups and friends meant to people. Now he was hurrying Lee Cheng-yin to set off faster without wasting precious time. Toot Toot had invested a lot of energy and didn't want it to go to waste. They had to act quickly. But who knows what obstacles and dangers await them on the way.